Okay, we are live.
Hey folks, it is May 27th, 2021, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week and talk about the latest pressing needs from the development side of the Backdrop CMS project, plus also touch on other things that are development related. We will go ahead and start with some introductions of those present. My name is Nate Lampton. I live in Oakland, California. I am Quick Sketch on the internet. And yeah, we have some exciting, well, some developments that have been happening this past week that we're going to get into. Let's go to Robert. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet from Altadena, California. And I'll pass it to Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph from Las Vegas, Nevada. Backend developer working on testing stuff like performance and hopefully getting it so we can run on different platforms. Justin?
Justin Gustafson. I'm over in Denver, Colorado. Just help out with some infrastructure tasks when they come up.
And Tim?
I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim on the internet. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and I have been mostly lately really busy with work, and a lot of the backdrop time is mostly spent on administrative stuff, organizing stuff, and getting ready. Now we'll be getting ready for Backdrop Live now. Robert, did you already introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
There's only just Greg left.
Okay.
Who might not be able to introduce himself.
Yep.
Greg Netz says from Greece, sometimes Australia, known as Klonos on the internet.
Yep.
So let's see, we will go through announcements from the PMC. I don't think that we have announcements for this week. New contributed modules. It's exciting that we have one new contrib module, View Summarize, that was released this past week. Thank you, Jason Flatt, for porting that new module. And we can go right into the core status updates. Oh, hang on. Before we go into the core status updates, we've been discussing a little bit before this meeting, and there's been some discussions in the PMC queue and some other community places about restructuring what we do with these meetings, possibly turning them into more of a working session where people can bring in ideas or issues that it is that they want to discuss, and then we can try to work through them live. That would result in a lot less structure and a lot less unpredictability, but possibly also make it like more incentivizing for people to show up if they felt that they could get help or opinions on issues during these calls, rather than the majority of the meeting being taken up by things like the progress report, where we go through the same issues every week. So we are considering doing some changes like that. We haven't really landed on any kind of official changes yet to the schedule. So for now, we're still going to be doing the run through the agenda, at least for this meeting, while we kind of sort out what that new format might potentially look like. So kind of on the horizon, some changes might be coming to this meeting, the way that we organize it. Also related, at the beginning of every release cycle, we usually have some kind of planning meeting where we take this meeting time and we use it to solicit ideas from the whole community, saying, hey, what is it that people are interested in working on? Kind of talk about what we think is feasible, where momentum is, and then we can't really force any issue to be like a priority because we need people to work on it. But what we can do is kind of incentivize and encourage people to work on particular issues. So our plan is that meeting for discussing like priority features for the next version, which will be 1.20, will probably be during next week's meeting at this time. So June 3rd, at this time, we'll be doing kind of the planning meeting for 1.20 as prioritizations. Maybe after that, we'll also move towards this newer, like bring your ideas format to the meetings as well. So some changes on the horizon. Next week will definitely be different. And then the one after that, we'll see, like if we shake up the whole format entirely, we might have a new agenda template that we work from instead. I think I summarized that. Tim and Greg, you two have also been privy to that discussion about changing up the format and also planning meetings. You guys are familiar with how they've worked in the past. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you basically described it. The way I understand the current proposal, and we could still discuss it more, is that basically instead of listing all of the milestone projects, whether or not there's been any update, is that to sort of get on the agenda, either a core committer would need to be, someone would flag them with an issue and they would sort of be ready to talk about it at the meeting, or anyone else could show up at the meeting and be able to talk about it. But that we avoid talking about issues where there's no update or there's no, nobody there with any, that's prepared to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I understand the proposal. If I'm misunderstanding that, please, somebody let me know.
That's how I understand it as well, more or less. It's trying, at least with the next milestone, the minor milestone, try to get certain things done rather than discuss current status or where it's blocked. Actually, if there is a blocker, try to see if we can sort it out during that session, which sort of becomes like a very limited mini code sprint, I should say, or some code review sprint.
Mm-hmm. One concern I have is how we could prepare for those meetings. Like if people are coming in with ideas and they haven't told anyone about it prior to the meeting, then it might not be very productive if we spend the whole meeting describing what the problem is without any background. Because sometimes these issues take 10 or 15 minutes to get enough background to actually provide any valuable input. But on the other hand, sometimes issues are so complicated that they have to be described verbally. So I could see a benefit there as well. Yep. But the agendas, they're a little bit locked down, and I think a lot of people don't know where they live. Like asking people to add stuff to the agenda document, I don't think has been super successful. I think we might need a different way to flag issues for these weekly discussions if we're going to start changing them up frequently. And I don't quite know what that would be. It could be like a submission system where it's like you fill out some form somewhere. It could be a channel in Zulip. That also could be a little bit obscure for some people. It could be a tag on the issues, something that
we already have a tag that we kind of use for the design meetings, and it's just design, but that applies only to the core issue. I'm not sure if we have the same tag and how we can aggregate those tags across
across projects. Yeah.
Yes, but having said that, this is about the core project, so it would most likely involve core and maybe the main site. Another thought that I had is, yes, this can get lengthy, like the discussion could get lengthy, but we can spend 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the session to sort of like list the issues and prioritize them and say, we're going to go through them this order and then go through as many as we can. It might mean that we focus the entire meeting on a single one, the one that's top priority, which means that the rest of them will need to be pushed. But I think that it will help us get things done.
Yeah, I like that idea, a little pre-meeting prioritization. Yeah, I wonder if we ended up using a tag in the issue queue, if we would like wipe out the tag every time in between meetings. So it's like putting the tag on something means you're going to show up to the meeting to discuss it. And it's like, and after every week, we're going to wipe out the tag. And it's like, if you want to discuss it next meeting, you got to tag it again. And that way, that would give us a really fresh cycle of like, hey, we have new stuff to talk about every week. And we'd also have some kind of idea of, are we going to have anything to talk about, at all before the meeting starts. So I don't know. You guys seem like had an initial positive reaction to that.
Yes,
but it being across multiple projects is still an issue. That's like, that would only work for discussing core issues.
And the person that triggered this whole discussion is Dr. Wilmot, so maybe we'll wait to hear once he's watched this and then his thoughts, if you would like that format or the idea of that format being that one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go through the normal updates then. For now, we don't actually have a whole lot of time today to go over it, so this could actually end up being fairly short. So, but yeah, let's do the normal core update for now. So 1.19 is the bug fix release that just came out yesterday. So if you guys haven't been paying attention fully to what's happened in the core sphere, is that both 777 and 8 and 9 released new versions of core yesterday that included just an updated version of CK Editor module, that there was a third-party vulnerability in CK Editor module, and then all of the projects, including us, that depend upon CK Editor 4 all went through and updated to the newest version.
Not 777 core, 8 and 9.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 777, the respective, there's an issue in the respective contrib module where they're discussing allowing support because they were having issues with previous versions as well, 4.15, I think, or 4.14. And now they're working towards allowing the new one, 4.16.1 to run smoothly. So ongoing discussion still in the 17th.
Yeah, for us, that did bump us up a couple of versions. I think that we were a few versions behind, so we went from trying to remember off the top of my head, 4.14, I think, to 4.16.1.
Yeah.
And so that did jump us up a couple of numbers. We did some checking, to make sure that we didn't think that there was any issues. But the security update yesterday, honestly, was really hectic because there was a lot of confusion about what was happening, because CK Editor didn't actually specify that it was a security update. Instead, the Drupal community thought that it believed strongly that it was a security update, even though CK Editor didn't say it was a security update. And then there was a lot of fluffing around about getting a CVE and is this actually going to come out today or not? And so so the whole thing was a little bit hectic, and we apologize for kind of getting that out late in the day and making that a big rush. But we didn't get it. We didn't really see it coming because it was all such a hectic thing.
Well, can I just say that the D7 comment is important, because I think people like me associate backdrop security updates with Drupal 7 security updates. So it was confusing that Drupal 7 wasn't being updated, but backdrop was. And my understanding of that is because, like Drupal 8, we brought CK Editor into core, where Drupal 7 doesn't have CK Editor in core. So if anybody's confused about why Drupal 7 was updated, that's my understanding, or it wasn't updated and we were. Yeah,
and it's the same situation when there's security updates for the D7 version of contrib modules that we have included in core. So in Drupal land it might be a D7 contrib security update, whereas in backdrop land it might be a core update. So the only concern that I have is that because we work closely with the Drupal security team, are they aware that CK Editor is part of? That was my concern, that they consider backdrop being D7, so they didn't loop us into the whole thing. So what happened was, usually we coordinate and make the releases about the same time, but this time we had to wait for that release to come out, and then we were looped into. We weren't looped in, actually. We discovered that it also affected us. I'm not sure what we can do towards that. I'm not sure how the Drupal security team operates and who makes the decisions to loop us in. But I would say that, and someone else mentioned that in the queue, I think it was Peter. I think that it's better if they loop us in to everything and they would say, we make the decision of, yeah, this doesn't concern us, and then we get removed from the queue, if that's a possibility or an option.
Yeah, I think that we've been working towards that. Jen is officially a provisional security team member. I am a as needed added to issues. So I'm not a security team member, but I get added to issues super frequently. And I think Jen being moved from provisional to full security team member would help with that, because then that would make it so she just has access to everything, which of course there's a bigger level of trust there, because there are hundreds of security issues for everything, contrib projects and everything like that. But she's been working towards that for over a year now. So I think that it's probably like, if we were to request that, I think that she probably has been putting in the effort necessary to fulfill that requirement.
Yeah, and if it was, the discussion was theoretical in the past, this incident now, if we call it an incident, provides a use case of why it's needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that this sort of thing might have been avoided, or at least the fault would be on us. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so 119.1 came out just yesterday. That was the only change in the whole release. Was just the update to CK Editor. There is a big regression that we're trying to work through that was included in the 119 release, related to backup and migrate module. Some of the work that we've been doing for PHP 8 support required that we change an API in the database abstraction layer, and backup and migrate, doing a lot of direct SQL queries, used an underlying API that is now no longer functioning. And so that issue that we're tracking in core is 5094. Tim, you had said that there was something about there was a new release of backup and migrate that halfway solved the problem. Can you recap again what works and what doesn't in backup and migrate?
Sure. So initially, what people noticed after the release of 1.19 was that when they tried to do well, actually, it just kind of broke the site. My recollection is you didn't even have to try and use backup and migrate. I think personally, I tried to install a module and the whole site broke. So backup and migrate quickly fixed that. So now it doesn't sort of break your whole site. But if you do a backup with backup and migrate, and then you try to restore it, it doesn't work. You get a database error. So you can, from the command line, you can use the backup you made from backup and migrate and install it, but you can't do a restore through the UI. At least that's my experience, and we've had at least a couple of other users report that. As far as I know, there aren't any other side effects, unless you're trying to restore from backup and migrate. But the other thing I'll just point out in the context of this conversation is that backup and migrate is the most installed backdrop contrib module. So, and it's really not very functional if you can back up but not restore. So.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like last we heard from the maintainer backup migrate Quackers 8me was about a week ago, and he suggested a pass through that would make it so that the old API would continue to work. I'm not sure that we'll want to do that. That's interesting. I think that yeah, it does appear that we definitely need a core adjustment here. It looks like I have a pretty good idea of what it is that we need. I think I don't think that the Drupal 7 approach is something that we necessarily want to do, but we can come up with something that will work. But it will require a new release of backup migrate as well.
Sure.
Okay. So that issue fit. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So will you describe that in the issue, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will. Okay.
Well,
Um,
in the context of that discussion, and as Tim mentioned, it's the most frequently used, the most popular module in backup land. There's also a core queue where we are sort of like considering to bring certain, if not all of the features of the backup module, at least the backup portion when we perform updates. So I was wondering if moving some sort of functionality from backup and migrate into core would still make it the most popular module, or if people are basically using it in order to back up before they upgrade. So basically what I'm saying, if we did that for them, I'm not sure if it would be need for that module as much.
yeah, I think it's such a like a long-term like pie in sky type idea that like we've got our immediate concern in front of us that it seems like we need to get that solved.
Also, it was my understanding that there was a single line or just a conditional with a single line in the backup and migrate module, and that was outdated and that was removed and that fixed the problem. Is that not the case anymore? Or was that a workaround to get things going?
So, okay. My understanding is that, again, after, so what happened was if you updated to backup 1.19 and you had backup and migrate installed, basically your site broke. You just couldn't do, it didn't break immediately, but when you tried to do certain things, it broke. So they immediately did a release of backup and migrate that fixed the problem that was the main problem, which was really breaking everything. And then shortly after, people realized, okay, well, it isn't breaking my whole site, but we're still having problems with this restore feature. So that in the both problems were related. So I think it was a partial fix
Okay.
to just get sites working, because I literally I had a site that I had upgraded to 1.19, and then I tried to enable another module, and my whole site was broke. It was down. I couldn't do anything with my site, and I would have had to uninstall backup and migrate to get the site working again.
And you have to do it from the command line in order to get it working, or direct edit in the database?
Well, yeah, I think by that time I realized that there was an update amount available, so I didn't uninstall it. I just updated it. But
fair enough.
But yeah, it was completely breaking sites at first. So I'd just like to stress that anybody listening to this meeting, make sure people understand that if you upgrade to 1.19, you have to upgrade backup and migrate if you have it. That's a requirement, and or disable it. And we have added that to the release notes for 1.19. We did put a simple blog post up. We've tried and we tried to tweet about that and let people know about this requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of this stemmed from PHP 8 support, which is kind of a non-optional thing. We have to support PHP 8, and this was a certainty that the way that the database abstraction layer had been written, it was doing something that is no longer allowed in PHP 8. So some restructuring was absolutely necessary. We have an issue tracking further PHP 8 support in issue 5076. Backdrop 119 is not 100% compatible with PHP 8, but it's pretty close. We expect day-to-day functionality to work just fine. But if you try to run the full test suite against PHP 8 right now, we have a dozen or so test failures of certain situations. And so issue 5076 is the tracking issue for continued fixes to PHP 8 support. And yeah, we still have a lot of work there to go. Let's see, I added this issue to the agenda, Gregory, that you pulled up, has to do with Google Flock, which let me try to de-acronym that.
So it's there. Where is it?
Do you know what? Can you de-acronym Flock what FLOC means?
It's in
Federated learning of cohorts.
Of course.
I'm not a native English speaker, and it's the first time that I heard that word cohort. But yeah, anyways, had to Google it up. I'm not sure if Google provided the right information because of that. But yeah, anyways, So this was brought out at the same time. D9 and D7 had commits that was actually fixing that, or at least providing the header to block that. And at the same time, there was a question on the forum. So this is what actually triggered it. I saw the monthly or weekly newsletter from Drupal, and at the same time, I saw that I noticed that there was a post on the forum about a person asking what backdrop, what the stance of backdrop as a product and as a community. What are we doing with regards to that? Reading through the issue, I discovered that this feature, as Google calls it, was introduced in Chrome version 89, which was released back in March. So it's been going on for a while. And that's why I sort of like pushed if we could include it in this release, but yeah, it can wait. But the sooner we act, the better, I guess, because it's a security/privacy concern.
So the fix here is that we add an HTTP header to the responses that come out of backdrop pages. And my understanding is that it makes it so that if you're using Google Chrome, Chrome doesn't silently like read the page that you're looking at and then build an advertising profile based on the page that you're visiting.
Yes, exactly.
Which
So
rather oddly is on the onus of the site owners, not the visitors,
exactly,
to establish whether or not you should be included or excluded from this tracking ability.
Exactly. This is for us to provide the means to site owners to selectively, by default, block this behavior so that we protect their visitors out of the box. But if a site owner wants to take it on and enable it, they can do, but they have to opt in to do that.
Yep. And the fix looks pretty straightforward. It's overridable via settings.php or via the config file. It's very similar to some other headers that we selectively turn on and off based on certain properties. So I think like the X-frame options or something like that is very similar in the way that it turns on and off. So that issue 5103 currently needs review, I think. Yeah, it looks like it needs review. And you already helpfully wrote up a change record for that, Gregory. Thank you.
So the pull request is basically mirroring what happened in D7. So it's a cross-port. The only difference is the update hook that converts the variable into config for us. And the difference that we have in the test that we have to specifically add the block with information in the .test.info file. There was an issue that I discovered, which I reported back to the D7 core maintainer, and he followed up with a fix. His follow-up pull request is also included. The consolidated test thing was included in our pull request. So we, excluding the .test.info file change and the update hook, and whatever is Drupal something is now converted to backdrop something, the pull request is one-on-one with whatever is in D7.
Awesome. All right, so there's that issue. It's very near completion, we think. So far, there's also been absolutely no opposition to putting it in. I'd be curious to hear if there is any good reason not to put it in, because right now it just seems obvious and rather annoying that people are needing to do this in the first place. So yeah, any opposition, I'd be really curious to hear a good reason as to why we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, there is in the case where we need to allow site owners to do it, and non-technical people to enable it or disable it, providing an option in the user interface. But we have a dedicated issue for that. Like there's an issue in core where we're examining a dedicated security section in our configuration UI, and maybe eventually in the future we can add a checkbox for it. We'll see. So I've added an item in that meta, and we can discuss it at a later point if we want to expose that in the UI.
Yeah, that'd be really fascinating, like security and privacy section. Yeah, that would be interesting. Because everything we try to make everything secure and private out of the box, but then if that page was like, if you want to loosen your privacy settings, then then you could have an interface for that.
Yeah, we've been discussing that for a couple of years, that issue. There's things like the hardening of passwords, which we currently have it sort of like hard-coded. And then we are looking into introduce telemetry. So we want to provide people with options. So having a dedicated security or privacy section makes sense. It would be a nice feature, but it's a feature request. Yeah. Anyway, long term.
Okay. Yeah. So also sort of related and an issue that is getting some traction in the 119.2 issue queue is 777 crossports. We have one more issue that includes 777.70 through 7.75 at issue 5091 that is accumulating pull requests there to finish some crossports from the latest version of 777. All right, that's all I have for the 119.2 milestone. If there are other bug fixes that you guys would like to discuss for now, the policies that you added to the agenda in the future, we'll decide kind of, you know, how we can accrue other issues that you guys would like to discuss. There are a lot of issues in the 119.2 milestone. However, there's 77 of them. So those are all issues that are of note or of priority for the time being that can use mostly review, quite honestly. That seems to still be our main bottleneck. For 1.20, 1.20 will be the next version of Backdrop that will be coming out September 15th, 2021. And we don't have a lot of items slated for 1.20 at this point in time. We have the items that just carried over from 119. But I'll run over a couple of those real quickly. The exposed file name filter for the media library dialog issue 3293 just simply wants to make it so that we can expose a views exposed filter to the media library dialog. We have an issue there that's the nested form tags causes it to break. And so issue 3293 still, I think, needs some technical expertise as to how we can.
So there was an update on that. I'm not sure if you saw that, Nate.
No, go ahead.
So even there's a Zulip actually dedicated channel where Larry has posted a video. So he sorted out most of the things. And how this works now is when you start typing on the file selection, the path, it sort of like provides autocomplete, most recent files added, and it also at the same time filters the view. So there's a screencast of how that works currently. So he seems to have sorted out two issues at the same time.
Interesting.
The only problem, I think, from what I read recently is that he couldn't figure out the Ajax behavior, and now it's loading parts of the front-end thing there. So he might need a little bit of help with that. But yeah, there's some progress.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it seems to be working functionality-wise. It seems to be working. So the filtering and the autocomplete, providing the most recent files, this works as expected. It might be a bit odd that you have two input fields for the same or similar functionality side by side, that at the same time sort of like work together. So whatever is typed in one field is automatically typed in the other, and the list is being filtered. I haven't played enough with it to have an opinion, but if it works as it is, and it's an improvement to the current situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that it does actually update the view configuration to add the file name filter, which is what I would expect. One thing that I think I'd like to confirm or review is that I think that it's not unlikely that people would edit the view for the media dialog and add other filters other than just file name. Like if they wanted to put some vocabulary on there or search by file type, for example, then they might also do that. And I'm curious if this solves all of our problems, or if it only works for file names, because we're building in special treatment for file names, which is by far the most helpful filter. And this may be one of those things where it's like we say, oh, that's obvious, like 80% situation, and so maybe we should go with this even if it's not comprehensive. But I don't want to get us into a situation where it's like we're making things difficult for ourselves later, if they want to add, other filters to the view.
Yeah,
But-
I haven't thought of that, but you're right. Maybe if people add the view, maybe it breaks the functionality for the view, like for the filtering. But it might not. I haven't tested that actually. I might try to kick the tires a bit.
Yeah, but this is really interesting. It looks like Lauren was the one that it's interesting that he made a new issue for it. It's issue 5102. And I think that perhaps just because it kind of goes in a slightly different direction, that it was a good idea for him to split it off. But this could be on a completely different way of solving the main problem, which is adding that filter.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I will try to take a look at that. That's very exciting. Okay. Let's see, other issues. We have this advanced caching functionality, adding cache tags, issue 4127, that is currently needing review. Joseph was in this meeting earlier, but has dropped out. He's expressed a little bit of frustration, I guess, on getting that issue finished, not necessarily on the review side, but just that it's a complex problem, like the whole problem is frustrating. So unclear if he'll continue picking that up or continue with that for the next release, but it's there. Let's see, I think we'll skip down to Robert, the issue that you've advocated for, the decoupling node preview from layout module, issue 5067. Are there any updates this week?
No updates, just a request for people to try it out and review. I think it's ready to go. I've been using it.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Robert, for that. Really appreciate it. Okay. And I guess that's kind of it for 1.20 at this point in time. We do have, as I said earlier, kind of the planning meeting for next week. That usually ends up with creating a few new advocates for particular issues. There's no real need to delay, though. If you're interested in becoming an advocate for a particular issue, add milestone candidate minor to any issue, and then add your own name as an advocate up to the top of the issue summary. And then we'll start talking about those issues. Well, I guess maybe we won't talk about it every week after this, but but still, getting into the 1.20 milestone, the only thing that really is necessary is that we have an advocate for the issue, someone that will kind of help that issue along, like as it progresses. Doesn't necessarily need to be a developer. Okay, initiatives. The only initiative we have active right now is Telemetry, which is like tracking the way that people are using their backdrop sites and kind of returning that data back to backdropcms.org. Tim's shaking his head because I think he's feeling guilty, but there's no need for that, Tim. I think that we should still just mention that initiative is still ongoing, even if there haven't been any updates recently. Would you like to say anything though, Tim?
No update.
Okay.
I have faith in us. We'll get it done. It's one of my favorites. It's just we need to bring all the moving parts together really close after so many years. But yeah.
Okay. That's it for the discussion items today. Do you guys have anything else you would like to discuss in the next couple of minutes before we close?
I think there was an item that I added in the previous for the 120, the one that I was advocating, and that's something that Peter was advocating before. He just doesn't have time for it. I still plan to work on it, but in the meantime, there's a 4585 So I started working on other issues and I filed a pull request that is really proposed. I would like feedback to get that out of the way, and then I'm going to advocate for the what is it called, draft.
Oh, save as draft in core.
Save as draft. Yeah, I'll work on that because it needs more work, but it's 99 close to finish that 45, 85, which is basically adding a report page that lists all paths where files are being uploaded on the site. It's basically just adding a report page.
It's like a usage page, like where files are used. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so it basically lists all the paths that have been configured either in image and file fields or respective, text filters, text formats, where they save their files. So you have an overview of all the paths are private or public. Yeah, so it's more
interesting. Huh. Well, that'd be very interesting. I wonder, yeah. I'm taking a look now at 40, 45, 85, that issue that, yeah.
My only blocker at the moment, not blocker, but I need to find pretty names for the entity types because I don't want to call things nodes or taxonomy terms when they're, so I need to prettify that, but I need, before I do that, which is tweaking, I need feedback on anything major, like anything that should be added there. It feels that at least can be gotten out of the way really soon, and then I can focus on the other issues.
Yeah, it's something that probably, I haven't looked at it yet, so forgive me if it already is. It's probably something that needs to be extensible because contributed modules are going to be adding their own paths of where they might put stuff. So it probably is one of these things that every module in core should be using an API to say, hey, as file module, I use these locations. As filter module, I use these locations. So that each module can do its own pointing at where it's saving files and what configuration pages you make the changes.
Yeah. And basically now I'm looping through image files and image fields and file fields. And I'm looking in their configuration to see which wrapper they're using and if they have a custom path within either private or public files. And that's what I'm listing here. And the way that it's written, I think if there was another, I think that the other non-core use case of wrappers is just CDNs or something else that saves directly to something external. Is that right? So I think that the way that it's written, it should support that as well and list it there. The only thing that I saw when comparing this to Drupal 8, I think, or Drupal 9 is that certain modules, you can add tokens in the path of files. So basically, I know that in GovCMS automatically, for example, in order not to accumulate multiple files, the paths include year and month. So they save monthly so that they split the volume of files into separate directories. But I haven't seen any mention for image or file fields in Backup to say that they support tokens so far. Maybe it's something that we didn't add.
I am not sure. Off the top of my head, I thought that we did support tokens.
I thought as well, but
I think that we just don't use them out of the box.
Maybe. I didn't see it in the UI. It's not, see how if a field supports tokens, we say this field supports tokens. It's not mentioned in any of the file related, the path, related. But yeah, that's a follow-up. Anyway, I would like feedback on that. Maybe I can get it out of the way soon and then focus on the save drafting.
Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of the save draft issue, there's also an issue that's kind of related to that changes the way that we put the description text beneath each action. Like if you say publish or save as draft or schedule for later, there's a pull request that changes the way that works slightly to tidy that up. And I wish that I had it right here, but I can't.
I saw that you posted so Indy Cozella had a concern with regards to the field set that we've added. That's, I'll find it quickly.
Yeah, here it is. It's issue 3122. There we go. Yeah, and that issue's super close. It might actually affect a little bit the way that any save as draft functionality works. Yeah, but okay, looks like Jen actually commented on that today, that the pull request is super close, but it restructures the form slightly for where the promote to front page and sticky checkboxes are. And so there's some concern about changing the form structure could impact existing sites. So it looks like that Jen's okay with separating out that change for the time being, and then we'll just kind of get the usability improvement of having the description text be next to the radio buttons in that issue. Yeah, I like that issue a lot. 3122 just does a little cleanup on the way that the options for publishing are displayed and configured. So that's really close. Okay. Well, we've got to wrap. It's the top of the hour. Thank you, folks, for being here today, and thank you those out there who listen to these phone calls. Probably, like I said, next week we'll do kind of the planning meeting, and yeah, we'll start accruing or bring your ideas for things that you would like to talk about for 1.20.